Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the V-Door Locksmith. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and as always, please let us know if you can actually hear us. So if you can hear me, let me know, get a comment in as we are going along. We just want to make sure everything's working right. This is season 2 of the V-Door Locksmith show, so we are unlocking the secrets to success in the oil and gas industry, one interview at a time. So still waiting to see if anybody says anything. We've rearranged the set a little bit this year just because I needed to be able to have a little bit more space in my office so I'm not crammed in the corner. So things may look a little bit different. Let me know what you guys think. As always, let us know where you're watching from. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them out there. Let us hear. We want to be able to, this is supposed to be an interactive show, so we want to be able to ask the questions that you guys want to hear. So I've gotten some good feedback here, so it says it sounds good. That's great. And so without any further ado, we've got somebody calling me. Sorry, I can't talk right now. Sorry, guys. Not everybody knows that I go live at 10 a.m. on Fridays. And we're going to try to keep this more consistent now that we've gotten into the new year and gotten past the holidays. So without further ado, we have an amazing person on the show today, Aron Deen. Aron, thank you so much for coming on, sir. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.
So Aron is the Director of Business Development and of Marketing for Ulterra.
You know what?
Ulterra Drilling Technologies or what?
Ulterra Drilling Technologies.
Ulterra Drilling Technologies.
And I think that's what my business card says. It's kind of we don't use a lot of titles. Fortunately at Altera, I've kind
Except for you get 2.
Well, you know what? I intentionally, little secret, it's not going to be a secret anymore, but every time I do a magazine article, every time I do any kind of speaking thing, I should have let you know, I intentionally try to change my title every single time just to see if anyone ever notices. So far, no one has, so it's just a joke that I have, that I laugh at in an Andy Kaufman kind of way, But yeah, I kind of work on internal consulting, whether that's marketing, business development, sales, training, innovation, digital stuff, whatever is new and different that we've never done before. I kind of get to dive into the weeds there. So over
that
the last,
sounds like fun.
You know what? It was a lot of people ask me what from a career standpoint, how did I do what I did? Because a lot of people feel like, especially engineers, which I'm an engineer by both degree and social dysfunction, how do people struggle with the idea of transitioning from engineering out of engineering? And I was just fortunate enough to get to come to work for a company where it was more, what we do is more about, what is needed and what you're good at and passionate about than, what you're kind of supposed to do or boxed into. So at Altera, actually, you know what? It just dawned on me that over the net, I think I'm about 2 weeks away from my 10-year anniversary at Altera.
Oh, wow.
And I've done everything from like sales management, marketing, engineering. I was our product manager for a while, downhole tool, innovation, you name it. Just my job has changed a lot here.
Wow. That's something. All right, guys, so we've got Dallas Scott watching, Derek Boyd watching, Matt Mahoney. Let us know where you guys are watching from. Amir, not going to attempt your last name. Dallas Scott says he's watching from the RTOC Center. He was actually at our IADD event yesterday where we talked about remote operations. So it was a great event, and Dallas was there. Thanks for coming out. Actually wearing, don't mess with my microphone too much, but I'm actually wearing my IADD shirt and my new Neuralis jacket. Thanks, guys. They're all out in Vegas right now. So thanks, guys, for watching. Appreciate it. You guys be sure to fire off as many questions as you can. So I'm going to start out with a really, really tough and controversial question.
Awesome. Those are the best kind.
Who gets to name these drill bits? Because I look at some of the names on there and I'm like, man, it's a cool name for a drill bit, but who in the organization actually?
So throw out a couple for me. Like, what are some that ring in your mind?
Ripsaw?
Ripsaw is one of them, that's for sure. So as it turns out, when you get passionate about this kind of stuff, I can't speak for the rest of the industry. A lot of the drill bit industry is a lot like a lot of other manufacturing businesses. You've got marketing departments and sales departments and engineering and manufacturing, and a lot of that kind of stuff is done through marketing. Altera has only had a marketing department for about 2 years, and I often say it's a very unique kind of company who lets an engineer start a marketing department as an innovation project. So we've kind of just been inventing, making it up as we go, like honestly. A lot of what we've done is taken notes from our customers, whether it's official names or not. Sometimes we try to think about, what makes sense, but as for instance, we're working on a project with Pertamina right now in Indonesia. And we did some successful development for them, and they said, this bit is performing great. It's like Thanos, and I'm like, that's a Marvel character. We can't. That's a copyright thing. That's no, we can't do that. Well, you can't tell a customer what to do, so it's a Thanos bit. So that's.
So are you
funny.
just waiting till the letter from Marvel comes in the mail?
No, we take that kind of stuff pretty seriously. But in oil and gas, I think that one of the things that has been great about Ulterra, to be honest, is we remember where we came from, right? This was a company that when I came to work here, I remember getting phone calls as soon as people knew that I left to where I was to come to Ulterra. And they're like, that company's about to go bankrupt. What are you thinking? Like, they're never going to make it. And, we've got to remember to have fun. This is oil and gas after all. Like, if we can't have fun with ourselves and, be a little bit humble about it, then what are we doing? And I think that that's, so we try to do things right, do things the right way with good intentions, but we got to have fun doing it. So if we get a nasty gram from Marvel, I'd be more than happy. If anyone's watching from Disney, I will come to you and talk about it and apologize. But we will. In the meantime, we're just trying to have fun, not taking credit for anything.
That'll be a fun trip to Disney.
Do you want to name a bit?
Do I want to name it? If there was like some kind of twin something, like if it's got just two blades or something like that, the terrible twins. I mean, because I've got Brooklyn and Weston are my kiddos. Like I'd have to name it after them.
There you go. So
something along those lines. But I think that would be a great marketing campaign. Is like here's the new bit. Here's a picture of the new bit. Help us name it.
Yeah, so our product technologies, and that's something that we've done a little bit differently, is rather than having just kind of pure marketing product lines, we've tried to have technologies that solve problems. So, I know you had a great show with Fred Dupriest, and he's one of my friends, if I can say that, and just kind of going at the industry, going at innovation from a standpoint of solving problems, rather than, hey, I've got this new idea, let's figure out how to use it. What problem are we going to try to solve, and let's go at that regardless of what ideas are able to do that. So whatever problem we're trying to solve, we view that as a technology that can be applied to something rather than a product line bucket that, this is just what we're going to call it. So a lot of our bits, like you might have split blade and ripsaw on the same bit. You might have, counterforce and split blade. It depends on what problems you're trying to solve. And I feel like, by doing things that way, it hopefully puts our salespeople in a better position to where when they're talking to a drilling engineer, it's not just a customer. These are people who have problems, and we've got relationships with them, and we're trying to help them solve problems. So, we want to be able to communicate in terms of solving problems, not just like, hey, I got to hawk this across the table at you. Right? Yeah. I'm just trying to I'm incentivized to get you to take this, and I got to say what I need to. We would rather walk around the table, sit with you and say, hey, we're trying to solve this problem. Let's throw stuff at it and see what works. So, hopefully our naming follows that to some extent, but, the naming thing, that's just kind of, let's have some fun with it. And as long as we're solving a problem, who cares, what words we use to describe it so much.
Problem solver bit.
There you go. There you go.
Solves ROP problems. All right, real quick. So we've got, let's see, Habib Bilal from Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada watching. John Carter from Haynesville. Lee House out in Lafayette. Aaron Saunter out in the Permian Basin. Cody Murray says, hey, Lee. Oh, you guys are talking to each other on here. Raymond Cardenas from True Shot, who was actually here yesterday visiting Rick, but sorry, guys, I wasn't here. He's out in Midland, Texas. And let's see, I think he put a question. David, how much I'm sure you have to wear one on my next show? Oh, okay. Hey, you guys bring swag, I'll wear it on shows. You guys, any little paraphernalia you guys want to have sitting behind me, pictures, stuff like that, send it. We'll get it going. All right, and then Cody Mark says from, that's up in Pennsylvania. And then somebody else from Nigeria. Wow. So we got plenty of people watching, guys. Thanks so much. Be sure to start throwing out some questions as well. So we want to get as many questions. And then also share the feed. Let other people know, we're talking to the guys from Altera. So
I'm going to jump in. Actually, I got a question I wanted to ask you.
Oh, yeah.
So you've kind of had an interesting path. And I apologize. This is what I do. I ask questions, right? So we're going to have to compete on who.
Okay,
This can be your podcast, but I'm going to ask some questions.
This is a chess match now.
So you've had an interesting career path yourself.
Yes.
So one of the things that's really interesting to me is entrepreneurship in oil and gas. So what did it take for you to kind of make that leap? What influenced you to do that? What kind of fears and how did you overcome those?
So for me to make that jump, essentially the last company that I was with, I guess for lack of better words, we'll just say that we mutually parted ways. I could kind of tell that the end was near, but I didn't know exactly when it was. But I knew that like what I was doing, what the organization was doing, and where they were headed, like it wasn't that there was any bad blood there. It's just I knew that they were going in a direction where I couldn't fill the need of the company anymore. Like my value proposition to them was like shrinking day by day by day.
Okay.
It was just like that. And so that in itself, just kind of started putting the writing on the wall, and it was like, ooh, okay, I need to be able to start figuring something out. So while I was actually with that company, we had started to, or I had started to develop what is now Gibson Reports. I actually had that as an internal product there.
Okay.
And I had pitched it to the owner and said, hey, we should monetize this. He said no. I was like, we should just use it as a marketing tool. He said no. So in the couple of months before we parted ways, like I knew I had a product that I could sell, based off of talking to my, friends and people in the industry. And it was just like, it couldn't go anywhere. Like it could just sit on my desk and be a tool for me, but it kind of lost its value for me because I really wasn't doing that as far as my sales were concerned. So as far as, kind of making that leap, it was one of those things where like, it kind of came to an abrupt end for us. Mm-hmm. And then when that happened, I pretty much said, I was like, I've got to do this. And I've had other entrepreneurial ventures that were outside of oil and gas, and that's what kind of helped get that process going because I knew that the industry was cyclical, and I'd been laid off and I'd been fired for several times. I'm pretty much unemployable, right? So I just had to employ myself.
Don't worry, I won't tell your boss now.
Yeah, and so I kind of just got to the point where it was like I knew that I needed to have something outside of oil and gas to be able to make sure that if I lost my job again, that I could have something to dive down into and be able to keep income going on while I looked for a job. And a lot of those entrepreneurial ventures, I learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes. I was just failure after failure after failure. But I learned enough to be able to where once this one got started, it was like, okay, now I can just put 110%. Instead of like a little bit here and there on the weekends and stuff, I could put 100% into it. And what the biggest learning lesson for me is that even though it's my company and I'm doing 100% of this work, I'm not working any harder now than I have for people in the past. I've actually worked harder for other companies and other individuals than I did for my own or for my own company. It's just now I don't feel like I'm working. It's just like this is what I enjoy doing, so it's fun. You know, being able to interview people and ask them questions.
Right. So that's awesome. Like, and the reason I ask is, you know, I try to look at trends, right? At meta trends. Like I said, I'm a nerd. I love technology. I love drill bits. I love innovation. I love drilling in general. But I feel like my purpose in life is to help serve people by helping them solve their complicated and important problems. One of the ones that I see kind of in our industry, and there are many, but oil and gas, in so much as it's cyclical, that's a supply and demand thing. But supply and demand works on so many levels, right? You've got supply and demand in terms of oil, but you've also got supply and demand in terms of oil field services.
Yes.
Right? So you've got kind of that bullwhip effect where, you know, whether it's fracking, whether it's MWD, it's all of these things, right? You can't just turn the faucet on and, you know, pick up 200 rigs. You've got to also turn on 200 rigs worth of support from oil field services. It's very symbiotic. You can't drill a well without companies providing the tools to do that. And without the companies drilling the wells, you've got no one to provide tools for. So we've got to make sure that there's health on both sides. There's another level of supply and demand that academics have been talking about for a few years in conjunction with the big crew change, right?
Yep.
Of what about supply and demand of people? We've got a big PR problem in oil and gas, right? And I kind of am trying to look at also what's the next step past that, okay? The first presentation I did, the first public speaking gig that I did in oil and gas was back in 2007. I went and spoke for SPE as a young ambassador program thing that they had, trying to bridge the age gap. And so I went to Texas A&M, and I thought, man, I must be a big deal because hundreds of people showed up. And as it turns out, right after me, a guy named Andrew Gold, who was the CEO of Schlumberger at the time, was speaking.
So I worked at Schlumberger in 2007 because that was right after the Mike Myers film. I can't remember the name of it, but we like Andrew Gold.
Right.
So, yeah.
But that was the first time I heard about the big crew change, right? And it showed all these people that, you know, were going to retire, were going to kind of phase out, and all these people that were going to come into the industry, and no one in the middle. And today, you know, how many people in oil and gas do you know in their 40s? Not very many.
No.
Right? And so here's what I'm kind of looking at. I'll fast forward to that. We're getting to the point where more and more people I talk to, you're very unique, but like you, are kind of looking at the rest of their career saying, you know, I've been doing this for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. What else? What can I add? You know, you're energetic, you've been drinking from a fire hose, learning how to be great. What else can I do? And you're running into a lot of the, you know, bigger, more bureaucratic companies, people just kind of getting frustrated. At least that's the sense that I'm getting. People that I talk to in the industry, you know, they're just like you said, I'm working for this company, I'm given 110%. I couldn't possibly work harder even if I was working for myself. And that kind of brings you to the precipice of what next? You know, do I keep going at 110% for no marginal return, even for my company, if I can't do new and exciting projects? Do I kind of, you know, do I burn out? Do I brown out and just kind of say, you know what, I'm just clocking in for 40 and that's it? Or do I try to get a side hustle, or, you know, what do I do? And I don't know what the answer is. That's just a question that I keep asking myself. So that's what made me so interested in what you're doing. You know, it sounds like you kind of had, as you put it, the writing on the wall that like, hey, I've got a great opportunity to go try this thing. And I wonder, as an industry, you know, what are we going to do with people that have great experience, have a good 25, 30 years of very promising career left, that really want to make a difference, but may feel a little bit stymied in their ability to do so.
So let me ask you this. What do you think we should do as far as an academic level to potentially get more people involved? Now, I know on a high level, we've got, like mass media and politics and a lot of things that are, pushing the other way against us. But other than trying to, turn that, Titanic around, what do you think we can do potentially on an academic level to get more kids, more younger people, into the industry?
So, as I think about this, one of the things that I've been trying to do, and this is less an academic endeavor and more of a leadership endeavor, but with academia, just because that correlates with people who are wanting to make a difference and wanting to, and at the early part of their life, trying to go into a career. So I've been trying to go and take different speaking engagements and stuff at different universities. And rather than talking about, the technology and trying to sell things to people who can't buy things, trying to offer some guidance and passion. One of the things that I think that our industry has lacked is passion. I think that to some extent, the leadership in our industry, I'm not calling out any names of individuals. I just feel like, to an extent, maybe we've even believed some of the media hype that, oil and gas is the bad guys. And at the same time, you look at it and energy poverty is poverty. There's not a hospital around that doesn't run on energy. The quality of life has changed dramatically with the increase in energy consumption. The U.S. has led the world in reduction in carbon emissions over the last 10 years by switching to natural gas from coal. That's been the lion's share of it. And so if we look at ourselves as like, hey, these are opportunities to make a difference in the world. While, I can see stuff on television that says, we're exiting the climate accord and we're, I don't feel like the bad guy. This is something that I talk about a lot. Companies don't make decisions. If you jump in an Uber in Denver and talk to the whoever's driving it, it's almost like people think that every decision at every oil and gas company or oil and field service company is made by a board of directors that includes like J.R. Ewing, Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, Emperor Palpatine, and Dr. Evil. And in truth, companies don't make decisions. People make decisions. People like you, people like me. They're engineers that live in your neighborhood that are trying to do good work, trying to make a difference. And I think that we need to be proud of that, know that, and kind of talk about it with a passion. Also from a leadership standpoint, and this is again, I probably, sound dyed-in-the-wool teal, but one of the things I honestly, I didn't expect to be at Ulterra for 10 years. I expected this to be a short-term gig to learn, what it was like to work at a small company. I worked for a much larger company that was acquired by the largest company. So it was, I worked for Smith that was acquired by Schlumberger like 3 weeks after I left. So it was, big and getting bigger from a culture standpoint. And that's great for a lot of people. But I wanted to see, what it was like to work on the small scale. And I knew that I was facing that, frustration of kind of felt like I was bumping my head a little bit. I wanted to try a bunch of crazy things that probably didn't make sense for a company of that size, but I wanted to go to a place where I could, right? And I was fortunate enough to stumble into a company where I didn't hear no and haven't heard no a lot, a lot of the people I work with might just be finding out for the first time that this is what I'm doing today.
If anybody's looking for Aron, he's not in his office today.
I'm not in my office today.
He's in my office, and we're here live on the internet.
But yeah, I think that we need to be looking to bridge the gap between entrepreneurship and fulfilling company our job roles at the companies we're at, and try to find ways to create opportunities for people to make a difference where they're at. I call it intrapreneurship, but, if you've got a project, and you're frustrated about it, this is my advice to you. If anyone cares, if you've got a project that you think you could be passionate about, work harder to do your job more efficiently and create your own time to work on it. Like, don't worry about going and getting approval and permission. And I'm not saying waste company resources, but if you're passionate about something, don't kill it yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Don't kill your own passion because of some cop out of, well, they won't let me do it. Test that hypothesis. Try it. Try to make a difference. And the more people are willing to do that, the more excited they are, and the better off the companies are going to be in the oil field, I believe.
I think that's a great bit of advice, because then if you do that project, let's say you get it to the point where it is, you're not bringing somebody a problem, you're bringing somebody a solution, and you're saying all you have to do is say yes or no to this, right? And if they say yes, then all your hard work pays off and it goes forward. If they say no, then okay, at least maybe there's the feedback loop of, this is the reason why we don't do it, it's not going to cost effective, it's not going to work, whatever it is, then you know that going forward. If it's one of those things where you do it and then they get mad and they're like, how dare you do this on company time and stuff, and then it's like, you shouldn't have been doing this. But if you're still passionate about the project, then that should tell you that's probably not an organization to be in. And that can help there. Then it's like, okay, did you legitimately F up and you probably shouldn't have been doing it, right? Are there procedures, protocols in place, or was it just somebody being grumpy at you? Then that can help you be able to understand. It's like, okay, maybe my passion and stuff can be better used somewhere else. I mean, from my own standpoint, you've probably seen some of the marketing stuff that I've done online. I've had all these ideas for years.
Right.
I've had them for years, and I've just been sitting on it because I was like, hey, let's do this. And they're like, no. And it's like, okay. And then it just goes in my little book of like, this is a marketing idea. This is I'd shared one with you beforehand. It's like, I just keep a little tally of all those. And I think for some people, as far as the entrepreneur side of it, it's like, if a lot of your ideas keep getting shot down, just put them in a book, put them to the side, just hold on to those ideas. And then when you get the opportunity to be able to, jump off the cliff, take your ideas with you and see what you can take out of that and build an airplane on the way down.
100%. Well, and let me ask you another question.
Dang. Okay.
If someone, whether it's me, whether it's a potential customer, an existing customer, you've got some idea, and a customer who is effectively your boss tells you that's a stupid idea. Why'd you do that? Do you tuck your tail between your legs and say, okay, I'm sorry, I won't do it again, or do you ask why because you're still passionate about the problem you're trying to solve?
I would say at this point in time in my career, if somebody said that was dumb, then I'd be like, well, I don't need you as a client. I can, I can just walk out the door and be like, well, I don't need to explain stuff to them. But I think it's important that, I'm a big believer.
That's not how I would market for you. I'm
I'm a big believer in the gap selling method, right? And in that methodology, it's understanding the problem and being able to provide a solution to that problem. So if you do come to somebody with some kind of solution and they're like, well, that's dumb, then it would be on my responsibility, it's on my shoulders then as the one who's presenting it to be able to say, okay, don't you have this problem? Yes. And it costs you this much money a year? Yes. And this product solves that problem? Yes. Then I'm confused. How is this not a good idea? Right? That to me, like that sequencing, now obviously that's like the highest level possible that there's going to be more in depth there, but going through that kind of methodology, I think will help in being able to get somebody past that point of, oh, this is dumb.
So let me see if I can offer something, right? Live. Again, I love doing this. Why I was just, wanted to jump at the opportunity when you gave me the opportunity to come here is I love sitting around with people and what I call solving the problems of the universe, right? So here would be my advice to you that's completely unsolicited and you didn't ask for it and it's worth what you paid for.
Yep.
So I absolutely agree on the gap the selling method, right? Like, okay, this is where you want to be, this is where you are, and this, is what's in between. This is how you get from here to there.
Yep.
That's a very logical step. One of the things that I found, and this is a personal journey that has been very tortuous, is that products don't solve problems, people do. Just like companies don't make decisions, people do. People are what does all of this. So my background from, I started going to the office at 6, 7 in the morning when I was 4 years old. My dad had a plumbing company. And so I grew up in that, family company, entrepreneurship environment. But in his company, he kind of had an attitude similar to what you were saying. And he was like, if a customer is going to be that, hard to deal with, then I'll go get a different customer. Right? I've got a diversified portfolio of bosses. So it's okay if one of them falls off or one of them doesn't like me. But it was at Altera that I learned to really respect sales. At other companies I'd worked for, whether it was, good grief, as a truck driver, I was a calculus teacher in high school, I was a computer programmer for a company that worked for the post office. I've run the gamut of things. But I always hated the idea of sales. I looked at it as like used car salesman. At Altera, I learned to not only respect sales, but to embrace it. So to get my ideas across to a person, I need to help them feel good about what we're doing. It's not enough just to convince them that I'm right and they're wrong. No, we need to get together and both be right about this. So it's one of those things about, gap selling is great, saying this product solves this gap. But what it really does is it helps you solve this problem. Right? That's the essence of it. This is just a tool by itself. It's just going to sit on the shelf. It's not going to get used. But this is how it can empower you to solve this problem, right?
True.
And one of the things that I found, and the reason I bring it up is because that's what I'm passionate about. People have great ideas. Some people have the courage to go out and pursue that in an entrepreneurial way, completely on their own, taking all the financial risk and financial reward. Companies and people, most people, I think, want to pursue those ideas, are willing to work 110% if we can utilize the passion that they have for them. But I think what that takes is internally you have to respect that you're gonna have to sell it. So whether it's your boss or someone in a different department says, "Nah, I don't really like that idea," keep asking. Why? Don't just give up on it. Okay, well, why? What can, let's keep that conversation going.
Yep.
If you're passionate about something and you give up on your own idea because one person said it was a dumb idea, then, I don't know, you can tell I get worked up about this, but I think about it, how would I look at the rest of my career? If I've got 20, 30 years ahead of me, how am I going to look at the next 30 years if right now I don't feel like I can, get an idea across the board? So I've got to have the courage to sell it internally, to be willing to hear that's a dumb idea. Really? Why? I need to know this, right? The only resource that we have, and really the resource that, if we work for a company that our companies pay for, is our time, right? So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're using that time wisely. And our companies to make sure that we're using our time wisely. And it's hard to do that if you're not passionate about what you're doing. And so that's what I get excited about. And fortunately, like I said, I feel blessed that I get to work for a company where that's literally a lot of my job, is to be passionate about ideas and helping people be empowered to, try things, reach out to people for help to try new things.
So let me ask you this. Have you set up a way for that process to be able to work internally at Ulterra? Because I've talked to other people about, having ideas brought to them, and I think operators in the oil and gas industry have a terrible methodology for this, right? Like, there is no methodology on the operator side. But it sounds like you guys might have done something internally to where it's like, if you have a new idea, bringing up, or have you guys? Is that something you've thought about doing?
So, thought about it, obviously. Only engineers, I think, use the word process. Like, processes, again, kind of zooming out to a meta level, a mental model of how to think about this problem, and something that I've been thinking a lot, that I've thought a lot about over the last many years. A process has to align with a strategy, but a strategy will never work unless it's in alignment with culture. So yes, absolutely, we've tried many different processes, and I could say this whether it's about innovation or knowledge management or knowledge sharing or training, all of these kinds of things. We can set up a process. Too often, those investments go unrewarded because they just sit on the shelf. People don't know about them, people don't use them. A strategy, though, can say, hey, we want to get new ideas from people. So we may have multiple processes. Let's do this innovatively, though. Let's try a lot of different ways to do that. But that's not going to work if we don't have a culture that supports people sharing ideas. So what we found most successful has been to honestly spend more time having these kinds of conversations. And that sounds old school, right? There are a lot of companies out there that are selling innovation pipeline software suites and tracking systems, and have KPIs about how many new ideas are coming into your funnel and what's your throughput and kill rate and yada yada yada. And I'm definitely up to speed on all of that. But what we found is if we take all of the effort and resource that we would put into measuring those things. Now, I'm not saying measurements are bad, but if we focus most of our effort on just encouraging and reinforcing a culture of empowerment and trying new things. So whether that, we've got an internal social media kind of setup where, there's several different forums where people throw out ideas. And more importantly than throwing out ideas, a lot of times we'll ask the question, okay, did you try it? Like, if this idea is important enough to you, if it's only important enough to you that you're going to throw it over the fence and expect me to do something with it, then it's obviously not that important to you. Prove to me it's important. How hard are you willing to work on it? Right? And I think that whole the reason that Altera has been good, arguably great at innovation endeavors, is I think that it's because we've kind of evolved our culture to really be about empowerment, about saying, look, don't take no from me. Who am I to approve your idea? It's your idea, not mine. Yeah. Who am I to take your idea and run with it? It's your idea. So show me how important it is. Prove to me that it's a good idea. Let's talk about that. And also not kill it. Everyone in the world can tell you why an idea is bad, especially smart people, right? Well, this is why it's never going to work. Okay, prove me wrong. Like, here's what I think, here are the hurdles you're going to get to, but I'm not going to tell anyone that their idea is bad. As a matter of fact, I joke around a lot. My entire career has been based on asking one question, and the way I figured it, it's the most important question that I can be asking. If you view yourself as a problem solver, the most important question you can ask is, what problem should I be trying to solve, right? Hey, I've got this great idea for a widget. I've got this great idea,
Don't say it.
windshield wipers for headlights, or whatever it is. Okay, I agree, that's a great idea. What problem does it solve? Is it an important problem? How important is it? How many people have that problem? Now that we've framed that problem, I can evaluate whether or not that idea is good at solving that problem. But, again, I think that, if a company wants to be great at that, if a person wants to be great at it, you've got to start culture first. And we spend a lot of our time at Altera, I know, talking about culture. Are we doing the right things? Are we treating, how are we treating people and their ideas? People come to work as a whole person, right? Not just as a set of hands that fulfill job responsibilities. we want to engage everything about them, all their diverse experiences, like things that make them who they are, because they come to work, and if they feel like they can make a difference, they're going to work harder. They're going to produce more, and they're going to go home feeling more fulfilled. And that's gonna, they're less likely to quit. I could go on and on.
I mean, feel free.
Obviously, I have.
So let me ask you this. So I'll ask you one more question, and then we'll jump into. I know we've got one or two.
I was going to say I've managed to say nothing about drill bits. I think this is awesome.
Oh, damn! Now I forgot my freaking question. Crap.
I talked too long.
Yeah. So what I have noticed is that I've seen a lot of people who used to be at Altera and now have gone on to run different companies and even start other companies that may be competitors to y'all. It's almost like the kind of like Bill Belichick kind of thing. How do you guys internally at Altera see that? Is it something that you guys are like, we need to work harder on keeping the people here? Or is it like, hey, like, this is to be expected?
It might be irresponsible for me to speak for everyone at Altera, but it's my job.
And the
so
HR department?
No, I'll definitely speak for myself, and I'll say that that most of the people that I talk to, I feel like they would agree. And it's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. A key part of our culture at Altera is we want to win. We've got chips on our shoulder from Altera's founding, and we're celebrating our 15th anniversary this year. Wow. So we've been in business for 15 years.
And you've been there 2/3 of that.
Yeah. You know what's crazier than having been there for 2/3 of it? I've been here for 25% of my entire life.
Wow.
And that's something that I kind of sit back on and think.
It's a long-term relationship.
Right? It definitely is. And a lot of people don't go into a job thinking about it as a commitment. And that's one of the things I do believe at Altera. We do think about, that as a relationship, that it's a committed relationship as much as it can be.
So all new employees should get like a ring with like a little PDC drill bit, and
yeah,
Altera's going to put a ring on it.
There should be a ceremony, and an exchange of blood, and so no, it's
break your hand across these PDC bits.
Mental note. Honestly, I think it's bittersweet. You got to remember that this wasn't a group of people that started this company that just came out of different industries. These were people that left other companies because they felt stymied. Okay,
yeah.
and said, what if we could just do it different? What if we could just, the things that we were frustrated about, fix that? Let's go do that. And at the same time, everyone saying, think about it. Other than Altera and the kind of companies that you referenced that have kind of followed in that wake, they're over 100 years old, right? And there have been a lot of bit companies that have come and gone in that 100 years. But Altera has kind of been able to survive by luck and just grit and determination, and just got the most updated Spears report, and I think for 2 or 3 years now, according to their numbers, have been are the number one drill bit provider in North America. So we've definitely been successful. So back to your question about how do we feel about creating that wake that people come and people go. It's bittersweet because we want to win, right? So does Bill Belichick. So does Coach K, in different sports. But at the same time, I think that we look at those people and say, man, we're proud of the time you spent here. You're an alumni, right? You're an alumnus of Altera, and we're going to be proud of that wherever you go. right? And I hope that anyone that's worked with me, for me, above me, looks at our time together at this company where we've done some really cool things, where we've really made a difference. I honestly believe that, and I know it. That we look back at that and say, you're better because of it. As a human being, it's not the success of the company at the end of the day that matters. It's not what we're going to be laying, on our deathbeds thinking about was the success of our company. It was, did we make a difference? Who did we get to work with? Whose lives did we impact? And, everyone most of the people that I feel like I've gotten to work with, and especially the people who have left Altera to go on and do other important and good things and are doing them, I think that, hopefully, if we've done things right, they would point back to their time at Altera and say, I'm thankful for that. I'm very thankful for that. And I would love to work with those people again.
Well, hopefully, circling back to the entrepreneurship thing, hopefully if some of those individuals that I've known that have left Ulterra and gone on to start other things are taking that same kind of cultural aspect and then spreading that out to the industry. And then if you continue to see that success, then it's hopefully more people see that and then go, why is not only Ulterra successful, but the people who left Ulterra are also being successful? Then people could start to see that, the ones that have left and taken that cultural aspect and said, okay, let's do things this way, that helps out.
So, and I don't think that I'm revealing anything that I'm not supposed to be revealing. If I get fired, I'll let you know. I'll send you my resume. But
you could be the host of the V-Door Locksmith then.
One of the things that I think about it, and I know that a lot of my counterparts at Altera think about it, is we hope to help create a company. And just think about that. I started as a field engineer, right? And here I am, on your show talking about I hope to create a company, like as if it's mine. But I truly feel that way, and I know that most other people that I get to work with do. They look at it as their company. But we're trying to create a company where if you worked for Altera for any amount of time and somebody sees that on your resume, that they go, okay, that's important. You're now worth 5 or 10% more because you had time there. And that means something.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping to help create. And again, that I'm blessed to help get to create. So again, I thought that this was going to be a short-term gig. I didn't know if they were going to keep me. Like you, I don't know how employable I am. But because I do take a lot of risks. I do like to try new things, and that can be very uncomfortable at times. But somehow we've got a fit, found a fit at Altera. So I'm still here, and Altera is still here.
Well, it's risk versus reward. If you don't take any risks, there's no reward. So let me jump in here and let's see. I know that we've gotten a handful of questions. Wow, there's a lot more questions than I anticipated. Okay, question for Aron. Obviously, they're not for me. Do you see much collaborative effort between bit, motor, and other tool selection to promote that interaction? Historically, it seems like large amounts of data being collected separately by type that may not be getting discussed collectively. So that's from Derek Boyd. I know he's out in West Texas. So, and then Raymond says, good question.
Well, to address Raymond's point, it is a good question. No, it's a very prescient question. There's a lot baked into it. So let's kind of start at the end. Is there a lot of data out there that is latent and dormant? Yes, absolutely. And so much so that I think that data, to some extent, is as much a burden as it is a tool. And so what do I mean by that? Well, data can be a lot like produced liquids, I think. If it's 80% water, there's a going theme in the articles nowadays that data is the new oil.
Yes,
right?
Heard it.
So let's think about that. Let's think about how deep that can go.
I like where this is going, by the way.
You've got to find it, right? You've got to, whether it's with divining rods or something else, you got to figure out where it is.
Witching rods.
Yeah, you got to figure out where it is. You've got to invest to get to it. You got to drill down into it and collect it. But once you get it, it's not a usable product. You've got to have a midstream that gets it to a place where it can be refined, which is a very expensive process.
And even before that, there's got to be conditioning that's done.
Precisely. So,
Right.
All of these things, there's an upstream, a midstream, and a downstream to data. And then it's a usable product that can still be used irresponsibly, right? That still has byproducts and artifacts, that still has costs associated with it. And even if it was a commodity, it's still valuable. So, and you've got a lot of invested into it. And guess what? You could take the same crude product and produce tar and produce ethane and naphtha, and you can produce all kinds
Diesel,
of things.
kerosene.
And if you need diesel, but you're cracking it and you're in a way that is trying to get propane, that data is not as useful to you anymore. So let's boil it back down to the, directly at that question. Absolutely, MWD companies collect data, directional drillers collect data, drill bit companies collect data, operators, rigs, everyone's collecting data. And the idea is, and you may have heard me say this at an IADD event, I kind of harken back to, Napster days, and, when it was, God, download everything you can, just get it,
Yes.
because it might be going away, right? And I'm certain that I have one or two iPods in my attic somewhere that have hundreds of gigs. There's probably a server at the University of Oklahoma that I still have many gigs of pirated music hidden on that I could get to if I needed to. Like there's a tape drive rolling on an old DARPA system because it was a hoarder's mentality, right? Let's download it and keep it.
Nothing but Spice Girls albums.
Yeah, oh, for sure. That's a whole iPod, bro.
Sorry, keep going.
And why are those things in my attic? Because I'll stream whatever I want whenever I want it, right? If I want to stream Spice Girls, I know where to go get the data and how to get what I want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. And then I will get it. You said Spice Girls, now it's all I can think about.
So you can get the data that you want.
Say it, you know you want to say it. Hey, we got to be able to have fun. This is oil and gas, man. This isn't banking. We're not on Wall Street.
Is anybody else that's watching laughing with us?
Yeah, someone in Nigeria is going, what is he talking about? No, Spice Girls were big in Nigeria.
I feel like Eric Allen, if he was watching this, he'd be laughing with us.
He's probably too busy laughing.
Yeah.
No, I think that, we need to be looking forward to a paradigm where we don't need to collect and save and store all of this raw data. What we need to do is think about what problem are we trying to solve with it? So as far as collaborating together, here's an interesting point. From an MWD standpoint, right? You've got shock and vibration data at the MWD, right? So I had an issue a few years ago where we're trying to ascertain, was Altera's counterforce bit technology, all of the physics, all the modeling, everything says that, and the subsequent data, again, you can't prove, but we have, in spite of trying really hard, have never been able to disprove that counterforce, it does very effectively reduce downhole lateral vibrations, at least at the bit. But, these things, you've got shock and vibration data. Hey, can I get that? And when I ask the operators, we don't get that. We don't collect that. Yes, you do. You absolutely do. Oh, well, Really? You'll have to ask the MWD guys. Okay, I'll go to the MWD guys that you ran for that well. Hey, can I get that data? No, that belongs to the operator.
Yeah.
Okay, the operator wants me to have it. Yeah, no one's ever asked for it though. So the operator didn't know that they got it, didn't know they paid for it, doesn't know that they own it. They're asking me for it, and they don't even know how to ask the MWD company for it so that they can give it to me. And that's kind of where we're at. So how can we collaborate better? I think that it's on the front end and not the back end. I think that we have to plan ahead of time for, knowing what problems are we trying to solve ahead of time, on a pre-spud. Instead of looking afterwards, how can we use this data to blame each other? That's what happens most of the time, let's be honest, right?
True.
Well, crap, the bit's DVR'd. Well, it was motor's fault. Let's get data that proves that, right? Well, no, it was the bit's fault. Let's get data that proves that. Well, wait a minute, I ran across this mud data that says that it was how can we use this data to prove our point?
It's the pumps.
There you go. It's, if instead we start out with, hey, what do we think the problems might be? What have the problems been? How can we collect the data ahead of time? Or knowing that we're going to collect the data, how can we plan ahead of time to use it to answer this question?
Yep.
Right? So in some cases, we work with literally, we don't have a directional company. So we are glad and happy to work with every directional company to do a better job for the operator. So how that has panned out is, hey, what motor are you planning on running? Well, what bit are you planning on running? Well, A, B, or C, but let's get together and make sure that this works. Yeah. I think it's incumbent upon everyone to take ownership of that involved, to say, rather than, feeling helpless and acting helpless, like, well, I don't know what bit they're going to run, but or I don't know what motor they're going to run. Somebody does. Let's go figure that out and make sure that what we're doing makes sense. It's easy to blame the drilling engineer as well. If you're a service company, I feel like a lot of times everyone turns their back to each other, goes to their respective corners, and says, "Those guys are idiots." No, they're really smart people. They're really smart people that have problems that we might not understand. Let's go work on that together. We've all got data to bring to the table, so let's do that. The big question is how. A lot of people are like, mine. This is my data. Those are my MP3s. Yeah. I feel like data ownership is a thing, but to the extent that we're drilling, we're making a hole. Let's make sure that we're solving the problems that the operator actually has. And I'll go a step past that. What we're not often enough talking about is we've had so much efficiency gains over the last 10 years that there's, the marginal improvements on reducing costs are getting less and less. If we cut time in an interval by 10%, but it's 10% is only an hour, I'm not saying it's not valuable, but marginally it's not worth what 10% improvement was 10 years ago. Yes. When 10% was, 5 hours.
Or 5 days.
Or 5 days, right. Yeah. There's still improvements to gain there, but I don't feel like we're talking enough about how do we drill wells to produce more oil, right? What problem is a well trying to solve? Getting these valuable resources out of the ground. If we look at drilling a well only as a cost optimization problem, well, the cheapest way is to not drill it. I mean, think outside of the box, right? That's the cheapest thing you can do.
Best way to save money on insurance is not buy insurance.
Right. So, and that's, again, this is kind of how I think, and I'd like to say how we think at Altera. That doesn't offend anyone because I do think weird.
I just can't wait till the next sales meeting. You're like in an operator's office, like, we need a cheaper bid. I can give you the best deal possible. Just don't run one.
Yeah, I mean, So we've got to think about what problem we're trying to solve. If it's to reduce drilling cost, that is the final solution, right? Don't drill. That's the cheapest. If it's just a cost optimization problem. Oh, well, there's other constraints. Well, we got to do this. We got to do this. Why? Why do you have to do that? To produce oil. Aha. So the problem of drilling an oil well is to produce oil. Okay. Why don't we talk about that in drilling?
We don't. That conversation never happens.
Right? And speaking of data, first I think we got to start talking about it, and then we got to start saying, well, okay, well, what data should we be looking at? Because it's not vibration data. Probably, maybe it is. Yeah. Maybe there are different signatures other than gamma, other than resistivity, that can show us, hey, here we go. We know where we need to be drilling while we're drilling, instead of people kind of throwing up their hands and the completions guy saying, well, this is the well that they gave us.
Yeah.
And the production guy saying, well, this is the well that the completions guys gave. This is a completion they gave us. Now, another part of that question is, well, how do we have that conversation? Where does it start? That is the way more than $1 million question.
Yeah, I mean, it's $1 million question per well.
But I think that we have to be open about challenging that paradigm, right? And think about how quickly I made that logical chain. We drill a well to make oil, so why don't we talk about making oil? Why don't we work on how do we, what are the, again, back to your show with Fred, what is the performance limiter to producing more oil in drilling? Is it window of uncertainty? Is it ROP? All of these things are at play, and I think those are the questions that we've got to be asking. You know what I get a lot of times when I ask those questions, though? I thought you were the bit guy. We've got to change that.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Don't
get back in your silo. You're making me uncomfortable.
Yeah. I've gotten that on LinkedIn several times where I'll comment on something and be like, stay in your lane. You're you're MWD, you're drilling, you're data guy. Don't even think outside of that box. And it's like,
whoever made that comment, make sure and troll Amazon. Tell them, what business they have in web services. They're a retailer.
Yeah. What business do
Stay in your lane.
Yeah. You don't have, what business do you have owning Whole Foods?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's plenty of those. So let me ask you this, but I know we've got some other questions that people, maybe if I asked more of these questions, people would actually ask questions online instead of me always asking mine and then missing some. But I do want to say this, how often do you see directional companies approaching you guys and saying, hey, Aaron, we're thinking about running a 7850 on this next. Could we come together outside of the operator, because spud meetings is usually put on by the drilling engineer and the operator. Have you ever been a part of a spud meeting where it's the service companies are just saying, hey, let's get together real quick and make sure that the group of us drill a good well? Not waiting on the operator to take that initiative, but service companies. And it could be just two companies getting together or something like that. Have you seen that? And more specifically, have you seen the directional drilling companies coming forward and doing that?
So number one, not enough. Number two, more now than ever. Okay. So full credit to a lot of these directional companies. God, if I start naming them now, it'd be like an Oscar speech. But all of them, right? So
there's 75 in Texas over the last 12 months. Data via Gibson reports. Go ahead.
The more now than ever, and they want to do a great, and it's coming with the right heart. They want to do a great job. They want to make sure they're doing a great job. So a lot of times the information that they're asking for, I've noticed. I'm not gonna bury the lead. The information that we need to share first and foremost is these are the people you need to be talking to. So do I get those calls? Absolutely. I just talked to some of the guys at D-Tech, talked to some of the guys at Scientific, talked to the guys at all kinds of different companies, and the most important thing that I can do quickly is say, you know what, the best thing you can do is talk to our local ops guys there about that specific job. And I'm here to support in any way that I can, but you guys are the ones who are actually making a difference. You guys are the ones that know what's different on this side of the highway versus this side of the highway. Yeah. So you guys work together. And so, that's what we're trying to do a lot of right now, is make sure that the coordinators and the DDs have as good a relationships and at least contacts with our guys that are on their level geographically, so that they can converse and really make solutions happen. From a central standpoint, the main thing that we're trying to do is support them in making those decisions, so that if they have a personal relationship and the coordinator calls up our district manager and says, hey, we're making a change over here, okay, cool, we need to send out a different bit or that's going to fall flat on its face.
Yeah.
At a higher level, there's at least, maybe I should ask you, there's at least 16, well, there were 16 companies, I think, at the last IEDD rotary steerable exhibition, right? Yep. And that didn't include Schlumberger, Baker Hughes, or Halliburton, I don't think.
Yep.
So a lot of rotary steerable development. Almost all of those, they've reached out to us and we've reached out to them because we recognize that that system has to work, not the tool. Who cares if the tool works if the system breaks? So, okay, well, we're using these kind of pads this far from the bit. What do you guys think about that? So as they're actually developing these new rotary steerable tools, we're trying to work and collaborate with them from the design standpoint, from the blank sheet of paper. Okay, well, when this gets commercial, these are the things that we need to do from a bit standpoint to make sure that that tool is successful as it can be, right? So at every level, absolutely being collaborative. And then lastly, we're working with a software startup out of Houston to work on some of that kind of stuff as well, to build a system where we can plug in the metadata to the EDR data. The metadata being, what are the components of the BHA, what type of motor is in it, and have it work seamlessly together to where we can query EDR data with by motor, by all of that different kind of stuff to say, how should the parameters be different and that kind of stuff. So that's a project we're still in the late prototype phase of, and are starting to work with some initial operator partners on, to basically say, look, let's have more of a central portal instead of the MWD guys coming back and handing a drilling engineer a printed out stack of paper with a staple in it and say, here's your data. And literally, that's happening. Not only is that happening, there are operators that
That's not data, that's pictures.
Right.
That's illustrations, that's not...
But it's happening, and it happens every day, and I know you know it, but it happens every day, to the extent that there are operators that have worked on optical recognition so they could run these things through a scanner and convert it into data.
When it was already digital at some point.
So if I can enter the bit records and the dull pictures and my type of metadata, and the mudlogger can enter their formation tops versus the predicted formation tops, and the motor guy can enter in his BHA, and all of this stuff can go into the same place, then we can kind of start querying by that. It's akin to the idea of, you can have a remote operations center for an emergency room, right? And you could have all the heart monitors and everything on the wall, and you'd have all these signals and moving lines, and good doctors could look at that and say, hey, they're going into cardiac arrest, and this person is low on oxygen, and they could recognize those signals. But that doesn't really help if you don't know that this is a 23-year-old woman that's pregnant, and this is an 80-year-old man with a pacemaker. You need to have that metadata that can't be recorded by a sensor to really make that data more useful. So that's what we're trying to do, is facilitate, make it easier for these different people to work together, to share data, in a collaborative way where everyone's seeing the same set of digital truth, and talking about it and making decisions and asking it questions that make sense.
We'll have to talk offline about that a little bit more. So let me jump back over here. We got a couple more questions. I really like that response, by the way. So Derek, I think Derek Boyd was the one who asked that original question. Hopefully he's still watching and you got that. Guys, please share. Let us know what you guys are thinking. Oh, so a previous coworker of mine, Dan Svantes, over at Lodestar International. Question: the oil and gas industry isn't one to focus on marketing on billboards or on Facebook. Where do you see the greatest return for your effort as far as marketing to gain new customers? I've seen a lot of pamphlets and swag at conferences, but I don't see that making a big difference. Now, granted, let me give you a little background on this. Dan's a younger guy, so he's, I think, mid-late 20s. So I know that marketing towards individuals of that nature versus some of the others, but we definitely have younger blood coming up in the industry. So what would be your response there?
That is, man, if the opinions out there are all over the map. You know, how much is that one billboard worth to Coca-Cola, for that matter? You know, like, where is the best return on investment? Measuring return on marketing is next to impossible. It's very, very difficult to do. How about this? I'll turn it around. If you have ideas about how I can get in front of you, please share them. The crazier, the better, because I happen to know the guy who's the head of marketing for Altera, and he'll try just about anything. Honestly, I ask those questions, right? Because I'm not a marketing guy. I'm an oil field guy. I'm a field guy, right? I'm a field engineer. So I think about those the same things. So let me ask you guys this question, you know, and you guys please respond. I want to know all this stuff. So I'm going to abuse your audience and make them the stars of the show. Comment and let us know, or email me directly, whatever. Tell me the last magazine, oilfield magazine article or magazine advertisement that you remember. Don't go look it up. Just off the top of your head, do you remember a single advertisement for oil and gas? And what is
in a hard copy magazine?
No, or a billboard, or in the Midland Airport. And I've got a few of them, but keep in mind that is my job, so I'm purposefully trying to find them. The point is, most of those things aren't memorable. And I struggle with it because what else do you do? So I'll ask you right now, off, you know, top of your head, what's the last oil field advertisement that you remember? So if any CFOs are listening,
I cannot think of one. There's not one that like just stands out.
Yeah. So your podcast is pretty good from an advertising standpoint,
Thank
right?
you. Appreciate
And
that.
you and I have talked about this, right? Like you're at one point in time, and I'm just, you know, apologies if you consider it rude. I'm not trying to be that, but early on when you first started doing the podcast, it almost from an outside perspective, feedback you didn't ask for, and you might hate being live. Sorry, it was almost like your podcast was more popular than your company.
Oh, it was.
Right?
Oh, by far.
And it was like, okay, so, you know, how do we align these things? And that's something that I ask. So, and when I say we try some crazy things, I look at marketing a lot different. I don't want, it's not my goal from a marketing standpoint at Ulterra. It's not Ulterra's goal from a marketing standpoint to market directly to customers. We're not a B2C company. My goal from marketing is how can I empower my sales teams? How can I give, I believe that we've got the best sales team in the oil field, period. And I can argue it.
Gibson Reports could challenge you on that, but go ahead.
The best thing that I can do is give them all of the tools that they need to do a great job. So we can talk about CRM. Full transparency, Altera doesn't use a CRM. Why? Because there's about 10,000 influencers worldwide that impact drill bits directly and purchase decisions, and we pretty much know all of them. Like we know we've got people who know their names and have trusted relationships with them. So I need to empower those people. So, you know, we don't do necessarily nearly as much advertising and stuff as a lot of other companies, because again, with every one of those decisions, we ask, what problem does this solve? What problem does that? So, but that being said, we did do we have done a few billboards. So in Midland, we did a billboard, and the way that came to happen is our
Sorry, whoever's from Houston that's calling me right now.
one of our sales leaders kind of reached out a couple of years ago and said, hey, you know, PBIOS is coming up, and we would love, and I'm wondering, how do we get people's attention before they even get there? You know, just to get them to come by to talk to us. And he said, well, I don't know. Let's think about that. So we went to Midland and said, okay, well, let's walk in their shoes. You know, that if they drive in this way. If they fly in this way, and they've got to get to their hotel, and then they've got to get here. And hey, well, here's a billboard right here that, you know, like they pass. No matter how you get there, you have to pass by it to see this. So ordinarily, a billboard wouldn't make sense, but it solved that problem. How do we get in there? So what do? Put a 25-foot drill bit on it and say, you know, thanks for making Ulterra #1, because it's got to be about them. It's not about us. It's about, you know, the customers who are making those decisions. But I'm anxious. You know, like you gave me the idea for a promo item. I always get asked, you know, how many bits did that sell? Did that promo item sell? I don't know. We do sell a lot of bits, but our company mission, and you know, this is something that's important to us, we try to focus our efforts on being the most trusted company in the oil field. Specifically, the most trusted employer and partner in the oil field. That kind of drives all of our decisions. If it's going to negatively impact trust, we don't want to do it. So when we think about advertising and promotions and stuff like that, are we solving the problem of building trusted relationships? That's what we're trying to do. And that's a question I ask myself at least once a day. How can we do a better job of that? We're open to ideas, but here's a crazy idea that we've done. It's actually, I think it's on Amazon. If it's not, my team is watching this right now, and they're probably scrambling and going, what is he about to say? One of the people on my team, and I didn't know about it until it was done, they wrote and had illustrated a children's book for kids of people in the oil field.
Awesome.
Called Benny the Bit. And it was just for our people, just for Altera people, because again, we want to be the most trusted employer first. And so at a family fun day that we had, we gave them away, you know, for everyone's kids. Wanted to make sure that, like, hey, this is what we do. This is kind of, you know, a fun little deal. We actually just did a part 2, a sequel to Benny the Bit. Now, does that help? Is that advertising? Is that, you know, I don't know. But does it make you a little bit more proud when you get to talk to your kids about what you do for a living? I think so.
Yeah.
So, sure, let's give that a shot. So
I mean,
that's not something that I think that any other marketing person in oil and gas is going to tell you, like, well, this is what you do. You make children's books, David. This is the marketing of the future. No, but again, it kind of goes back to, you know, the people on my team who were involved. They didn't ask my permission. They just said, hey, we'd like to do this. I'm going to get my job done, and then once I get my job done, I'm going to work on this, and then I'm going to get it done, and then I'm going to say, hey, Aaron, what'd you think about this? Because it's done.
I mean, that's the great thing about it. Like, I always think of marketing as like it's telling the story of the company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if the company is individuals, I'm sorry, Pete with Evo is calling me. Sorry, man, I've gotten a bunch of calls and emails. But
Pete, if you got a question, put it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think he's calling because I sent him another invoice. So, so it's automated in the system. Sorry. But like, you know, marketing for me has always been just telling the story of the company.
Mm-hmm.
and the reflection of that, and the company is a collection of individuals and people and their ideas and stuff. And so if you're able to tell that story, and be able to put that out there, and then people will become engaged with that and be able to connect with it and understand that your story may be similar to somebody else's. So like the whole, oil field people, with kids, oil field is one of those things where you've got to be away or traveling a lot and out in remote locations. So maybe you don't get to be home every night. So that's not just bit sales reps. That's a lot of people that are in the oil field business. So it's great to be able to see that. And I can see how that it can be used as a marketing tool to be able to tell the story of Ulterra. Mm-hmm. And be able to reach more people, and for people to then be able to have even more of a personal connection with Ulterra, as opposed to just, those are the guys that bring the drill bits, or those are the guys and or girls.
Exactly. That's one of the things that, I look at the companies that I consider to be competitors of Ulterra, my competitors, my personal competitors. I look at Amazon, I look at Coca-Cola, I look at Disney. They definitely don't make drill bits, but think about what they do, right? When you go to the movies, when you go to a movie theater, what do you get? A Coke, right? And you associate good times. It's part of who you are, right? Because they've done a great job of making you part of their story, making their story part of you, right? And that's one of the things, about being trusted is, trying to make that the first thing that we're going after, not just in our marketing decisions, but also, in our people decisions. One of the things that we try to make sure that our people do, it was natural at first, but we've been very intentional about maintaining it. You're never going to hear me say, I need to get with our engineering department. No. Do we have an engineering department? Absolutely, and it's excellent. But I'm going to call Al. I'm going to call George, because those are people, right? It's not the department that makes a decision. It's people, right? If we really need to help a customer out, like let's say that all of a sudden we do get that call and hey, we're going to pick up a different motor in 8 hours than we thought we were going to. It's a lower speed, higher torque motor. Just want to let you guys know, oh my goodness, we need a different bit if we want that to be successful. I'm not going to call Midland. I'm not going to call Tyler. I'm going to call a person there, and that person is going to get in a truck at 2 a.m. if he has to and go solve that problem. So we want to make sure that we're talking about people. This is an industry of people. Whether it's I love what Energy Strong is doing, with their hashtag, and people letting everyone else know, hey, this is a part of who I am, right? As uncouth as they may be, Drillers Club, absolutely love it. This is who we are. We need to be proud of that, right? And talk about this. These are the differences that we're making, right? Not just, hey, buy my product, right? Hey, let's go play golf. It's, hey, let's make a difference, I'm sorry, I'll preach, brother.
All right, let me check time. Make sure we're not going too long. Okay. So, and then we've got to get to some, because you asked questions for responses and I haven't even scrolled down far enough. So, quick one on this one. Where do you see drill bit space is going in this much connected world today? Drill bit as a service? ? And that's from Yuchao, I think is how you say his Zhao last name. He's watching from Geneva, Switzerland, by the way. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's a great question. I think there's been a big problem in across all oil field services, and it's rarely a technology problem. It's a business model problem, and that's where I think we need to focus a lot more energy on innovation. Is in business model innovation. Revenue models and pricing models need to align with value propositions, and this applies to everything. Otherwise, you create conflicts of interest. So let's talk about rig rate, right? So we're going to charge this much per day for rig rate, and the faster I drill, the less money I make. Directional companies, right? We're going to charge downhole tool rental rates per hour downhole, and the better job I do, the less money I make. Right? That's a conflict of interest, right?
Very true.
So what job is that motor trying to do? What job is that bit trying to do? Well, drill a foot, right? So for a variety of reasons and market forces and people not knowing better on both sides of the equation, whether it's a procurement department or a drilling engineer or a equipment company salesperson, those models have got shifted. PDC bits, once upon a time, it was a per foot rate, right? Well, that's the value that it's delivering. That makes perfect sense. The more footage you deliver, the more value. And then it's up to the operator if they pull it for low ROP, because that rate equation doesn't work out. So it's to my best interest if I'm charging per foot to drill as many feet as I can, as fast as I can, to keep it in the ground to drill more feet, right? So I've got to do that optimization, both from a design standpoint and a logistics standpoint. So where do I see this space going? Honestly, I don't know, because the industry hasn't gotten the collaborative value sharing business model right very often in the past. It's shifted back and forth from sales models to rental models. I think in general, what needs to happen is for oil and gas to survive, it's got to be a symbiotic relationship. And that means both operators and service and equipment companies have to be healthy. Has to happen. If everyone respects that, then what has to happen is our incentives need to align, and so our revenue and pricing models have to align with the value that we're bringing to the table. One of the things that has been talked about is, what about consulting services, right? If I'm helping someone develop a parameter roadmap, or if I'm running downhole sensors, right? What's the value of that data? Zero. I have yet to meet one customer who has said, I've talked to lots of customers who said, yeah, I want sensors in my drill bits. Okay. I've yet to have one person that says, when I say, how much will you pay me for this thumb drive full of comma separated numbers? And anyone offer money for that? Like, no one needs more data, wants more data. That's more work. I don't have time for that. Okay, well, what value are we providing? And what's that worth? Let's have that conversation before, we go make those investments. And then I can more directly solve that problem. So that's where I see the drill bit space going. I also think that, everything is getting smarter. And so we've got to be looking at downhole intelligence. I think that in my mind, I see like protesters, because protesting has been so in vogue for the last couple of years, right? And I have these funny daydreams of engineers going, what do we want? Data. Where do we want it? At the bit. And that's true, but we've got to figure out how to make that make sense, because if people are being honest with themselves, they don't want data, they want insights. And we've got to figure out how to deliver that, and a business model that does so, where both sides of the equation are healthy.
It's very difficult. I've been there before. So, so 2 more questions. And we didn't get anybody to respond on the last oil field advertisement that I've seen. So, hey guys, let us know where you're watching from, and also please share. Brought to you by GibsonReports.com. So feel free to go and check that out afterwards. So we've got one question: is what's the craziest thing you've tried so far for you? And I'm guessing that's geared towards marketing. So what's the craziest marketing thing you've tried? And then the follow-up question, so that we've got it in there, is what do you think will be the next technological game changer for drilling wells? That actually comes from a drilling engineer who's watching this show. So thanks, Travis. Appreciate that. Won't say where you work.
So I have to think about, I don't think any of my ideas are crazy. It's everyone else that doesn't get it.
Okay, which idea did everybody else not get that you had? And by the way, when you said Amazon earlier, I was thinking that y'all were going to start selling bits on Amazon. Just say that.
No.
Crazy idea on my side. But, okay, the idea that most people...
So I'll have to let that marinate for just a minute because there are so many and the
We got a
meet
comment that just
criteria.
said cowboy boot-shaped koozie.
Hey.
I don't know if that was one of y'all's, but it says,
I you know what? I will make sure you get a drill bit shaped koozie so that next time you can stick the Gibson Reports cup in the drill bit shaped koozie and so
just send me a whole bit and I'll just...
I'm sorry, okay, so the second question was the next breakthrough drilling
Well, yeah, what do
technology.
you think will be the next technological game changer drilling wells?
Honestly,
I mean, really look into the crystal ball here.
depends on what your threshold is for game changing. I think that when we think about what problem, if we solved it, would change the game, rather than thinking of it, and I apologize, it's just kind of the way that I think about things. Instead of thinking about, hey, here's this technology, and how, which one of these lottery tickets is going to change the game? Well, the one that's going to change the game is the one that solves the game-changing problem. Okay, the problem that defines the game. And I think that the conversation that I and a couple colleagues of mine in the industry are trying to forward as a conversation, as an industry-wide conversation, and is, are we looking at both sides of the equation from drilling? Drilling as a cost optimization problem and a cost minimization problem, and drilling as a means to produce more oil, even if it costs a little bit more. So, you just posted the deal on the horseshoe well, right? Yeah. That was my immediate thought, is that can't be the cheapest way to do it, but that's obviously not the problem they were trying to solve, is to drill the cheapest well. They were trying to drill a more productive well. It's still a cost optimization problem for sure.
Yeah.
But so then, what are we going to? How do we talk about that side of the equation? So how do we change the game there? At one of the IADD events last year, there was a gentleman talking about that mega pad that Concho drilled, and they
Bill Lesso, a former guest on the show.
Yeah. So, and he talked about, how, the wine rack and how, how those were stacked, how the clusters were spaced, how all those things happened. And imagine for a second, what if I was able to say to an operator, or a mineral owner for that matter, what if, you figured out, you think, you've downspaced now, you downspaced, drilled more wells, that didn't work out, now you're downspacing, you're back down to 2 or 4 wells per pad. But by doing this differently, by thinking about drilling differently, now you could drill 6 wells per pad with the same production efficiency. And your entire acreage, therefore, just became worth 50% more. Is that interesting? Is that a problem worth solving? Would it be crazy to think that we could do that with drilling technology? I don't think it's that crazy. But in order to do that, we're going to have to step outside of the drilling department, right? We're going to have to think about technology that solves problems that are bigger than just the drilling department trying to get it done as fast and as cheaply as possible. So what is that technology? be on the lookout for Altera to try to solve it, because that's definitely the direction that I think that we're trying to push is how to solve help people solve bigger problems. As far as technologies that are out there, I think one of the game changers, and this is, you're gonna laugh when I say this, but supply chain is sexy, man. Think about this. What if we could achieve the same number of frac jobs with half of the frac fleet, and all of a sudden the economics of entire basins change, right? What if and if the economics of entire basins change, and the activity levels change, the break-even costs change, all of those things change. That's what we're talking about with a game changer. What kinds of technologies will do that? Lowering the cost of the entire supply chain. Getting higher utilization on things. And that's one of the things that we've kind of developed the core business model of Ulterra around is the concept of rapid prototyping. Because it's a cyclic market, we've, the people that started Altera, have been here for a long time. We've seen the market go up and down multiple times. Imagine, for instance, from 2014 to the bottom of 2016, roughly 80% of the rigs in the U.S. went away. Okay, how do you think a McDonald's would handle that if 80% of burger eaters just disappeared? Right? They would do some major things differently.
Very true.
Now, what if, on average, a manufacturing and equipment supplier in any industry, best practices that they might teach is to keep about 6 to 9 months of inventory on hand to make sure that you're servicing your clients. And all of a sudden, 80% of your clients go away, or the work goes away. Now, all of a sudden, that 6 to 9 months can be 4 years or more of inventory. And from a management standpoint, you cannot innovate. It becomes irresponsible from a business standpoint to innovate because you've got 4 years of inventory financially burdened sitting on your shelf. So you can't innovate in a downturn. All you can do is drop prices, right? Which isn't healthy for that symbiotic relationship in the long term, because then, you're worried about making payroll, not innovating. So one of the things that Altera has probably invested the most in, and we haven't advertised this, but it's in having a lean, a completely lean business model. It's a rapid prototyping business model where, our lead time in design is less than 7 days. Our lead time in manufacturing is less than 7 days. Our goal is, if we identify that, hey, there's a new motor that someone's picking up, that we can design and build and deliver that bit before the next hole is drilled, before the next well. So we're constantly trying to chase that. So when I say that we're competing with Amazon, they kind of shocked the market many years ago with 2-day shipping for free, right? You go home and you expect that. Why would you go to work and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on behalf of your company and expect service to be so much worse?
Very good point.
So I'm competing with the middle space for that. So a game-changing technology, I'm telling you, we've got to think about supply chain as sexy, because that's how you can change the entire economics of something. That is probably, as much as anything, the reason that Altera has been able to be successful is that in downturns, we were able to keep innovating because we didn't have a lot of inventory. We were still rapid prototyping and developing. Whereas, if you look at a lot of other companies, it's like clockwork. Every 2 or 3 years, depending on which company you're talking about, there's a new product line, there's a new campaign, there's, these new things based on a calendar. Instead of, when should a new solution comes out? As soon as you have it. As soon as you have it. As soon as you can create value, create it.
Very true.
Sorry,
No, that's great
I feel
stuff.
like I have to keep apologizing.
That was definitely great stuff there. So the last comment came in. Derek Boyd said, individual and team recognition on projects is starting to happen more often and is a great way to promote unity and reignite passion about work. Great marketing tool, #Unity. So Derek, thank you so much for watching. One last thing I love to be able to, I don't ask everybody, but it's one of those things.
Can I agree with that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
One of the things that has been great that I've seen happen, and it's been somewhat organic. I obviously try to push for it, but other people have adopted it and owned it. So congratulations and thank you to the people and the influencers in the industry who are doing this, giving credit where credit is due. Every day, I can see through, my curated feed on LinkedIn, and I see directional companies saying, hey, we just had this great run with this rig, this crew, this bit, and saying that, hey, this wasn't my good run. This is the operator's good run with these people and this equipment, and not taking all of the credit, right? Saying we got to be a part of this, right? And that is a cultural shift that I hope is really gaining momentum. I feel like I see it. I'm biased because I want to see it, but having that culture of, hey, the only way we can make a difference is to do it together. So let's do that, and when it happens, let's celebrate it together. I'm biased in that because Altera is not a monolith, integrated company that, has a conflict of interest promoting other people's products and services. But I completely agree with that comment. If someone does a good job, for goodness sake, celebrate them.
Altera did have an MWD directional drilling company for a little bit.
Once upon a time, yes.
I was actually looking through some of my old reports, and I was like, Altera?
Once upon a time, yes. That was originally, we kind of came together as just a private equity deal. It was actually, so it started with a combination of companies. There was the PDC Bit Company that was started by Rocky Frazier, who is still our VP of manufacturing and kind of a legend in his own right. If you think about how rapidly we're able, to manufacture bits, it's just amazing. And to keep that kind of quality, again, I look outside of our industry for great competition like Gillette. How do they make that many things that are literally razor sharp and have that kind of deal? Well, that's the kind of mindset that we have, right, in manufacturing. But it was also some of Marvin Gearhart's endeavors with MWD, with Roller Cone, RBI Gearhart, it was PDC Gearhart, and then it became Ulterra.
Oh, okay.
And then we did the opposite of what a lot of people would say to do, and diversify your portfolio. Well, we kind of had the mentality of, it's okay to put all your eggs in one basket, but you better watch the basket. And so we kind of said, let's make some hard decisions. Are we, going to be an MWD company? Because we're too small to try to divide and conquer. So sold that part, and then even did that with roller cones. Said, PDCs are the future. Not saying that roller cones aren't viable; they still are, and may always be, in some niche. But let's focus on what we can be the best in the world at, and let's aim to be the best in the world at that.
Makes a lot of sense.
So that's why when we became, a pretty much pure play PDC company. Now that we've taken, a large and growing leadership position in that industry, I fully believe that we are the best in the world at what we do. We're looking at these other opportunities to say, what other problems can we strive to be the best in the world at?
Torque Buster?
So Torque Buster is interesting. Torque Buster solved an important problem when the lion's share of the wells being drilled were vertical and on rotary. Just the way that tool was designed, there was a lot of stick slip, a lot of weight being run, and a lot of and the RPMs were slower. So that tool was designed around the drilling situation and major performance limiters at that time. We look at redesigning it, but is stick slip still a problem in some cases? But it's altogether different. It's an altogether different problem with the super high torque motors. That, in some cases you've got elastomeric power sections that are outputting more torque than the connections are rated for.
It's true.
So now we're talking about, well, what's limiting there? Well, maybe it's the connection. Maybe we need to do something different there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. There's definitely markets for Torque Buster where those problems are still exist, but we've never been a company that pushes products into places where they don't make sense. That's not how you gain trust.
So what other things are you guys coming out with that you can't say?
A number of things are on the drawing board. I'll leave it at that for now. But there are a number of things on the drawing board where we're taking most of our cues are from customers that we built a lot of trust with, saying, hey, we've got this problem. And honestly, some of our best customers are the ones that really want to make a difference in their own right, and they feel like they can come to Altera to try something different, because we'll help that happen. So a lot of the things on our drawing board are originally, they originate with customers, with drilling engineers. There's ideas aren't limited to a certain type of people with certain titles. So we want to empower people not just within Ulterra, but within the industry. If you've got an important problem to solve and an idea for how to do it, come to us. We'll try to help make that happen.
All right, you guys, y'all heard it here first. If you've got any good ideas, be able to shoot them over to Aron at Ulterra. You've definitely made the case. Hopefully you guys will get a couple more applications in this week. Probably one for me, possibly. I don't know what I would do for you guys, but it sounds like a fun place to work.
I've got some ideas on that. We'll have to talk offline.
But guys, thank y'all so much for watching. I'm going to do this. The next person to comment, I will send a little drill bit keychain. You can have my actual one that I have on my desk or somewhere. I don't know where it's at. Lee House, you just got it. You were the next person to comment. So you're getting, I'll contact you later.
I'll do one better. I'm feeling generous.
Uh-oh.
I'll send us we'll look at the comments, and I'll send you enough keychains for all of those people that comment as of, what time is it? Within
12:02. We've been doing this a while.
Within the next 30 minutes. No.
Well, no, because we're going to cut the live feed and they won't be able to comment anymore.
Oh, they won't be able to comment anymore?
No. Well, I mean, they can. It'll show up. The red ones are live. The black ones are after the fact. We can just go back there and just see who commented during the show.
Okay, during the show. How about that?
Everybody that's commented during the show
Otherwise,
is going
I
to get
guarantee you
something.
someone is going to post something on Drillers Club like, free keychains, comment here. And then we're going to have to read about, what happened to Altera in the Wall Street Journal due to the keychain debacle of 2020.
So we've had Lee House, John Carter, Jenny Wilson, all of them comment. So you guys, thank y'all so much for watching the show. We really, really do appreciate it and sharing it. Right, this medium and this next season, it's all about providing value to everybody else back in the industry. I do this show out of the love of my heart for everybody else out there, because I want to be able to have interviews with people that I find interesting and have things to be able to say that can help you in your normal day-to-day life. It can help you find the key to the V-door, whatever it is that the challenges are that you're facing out in the industry. Those are the people we want to have on the show. If you have ideas for somebody you would like to see on the show, let me know. If you want to be on the show yourself, let me know. And please share, like, comment, do all the other things that YouTubers say at the end of their videos. I think my phone just died, so I can't read off any more of the stuff or see if we're still live. So, as always, Aron, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Hey, it was a pleasure.
Do appreciate it. And be on the lookout. We're going to have a new video series coming up. I'm not going to say any more than that, but if you've been paying attention, we've got some really cool stuff that's going to be coming out. And as always, know your industry. And that is it. Wrap.